It is truly an honor to be here and to help recognize such an incredible group of leaders and innovators in our field. I would also like to take this time to thank IISE and our volunteers of the program and track committee who spent tireless hours making this conference happen. Today, we have the privilege of hearing from our keynote speaker, whose leadership and impact has transformed the future of industry. I'm truly excited to introduce her. Jennifer Van Buskirk is a transformational executive with over 25 years experience in consumer, wireless, and business markets. She has helped shape major industry milestones, from the acquisition of AT&T Wireless to the launch of the very first iPhone. She's built AT&T's premium prepaid business, launching Aio Wireless and transitioning it to Cricket Wireless as CEO and president. Today, she serves as head of business for AT&T Business, where she oversees customer experience for the $30 billion company and also overseeing 20,000 employees. She holds degrees from Virginia Tech and Kennesaw State University. She is a strong advocate for STEM education and industry advancement. Please join me in welcoming Jennifer Van Buskirk.
If you know, you know. The appropriate thing to do is stand up. Come on. Yes, I see my Hokies. Yeah, all right. Good morning. All right, I hope you guys had your coffee. That's just a precursor to where we're going right now. You know, most people don't realize that some of the greatest business transformations of all time were not led by product designers or marketeers, financiers, or technologists. But these were led by people who really understood systems and how things fit together, by people who knew how to step back, people who know how to connect the dots, and people who know how to organize these systems to produce better outcomes. You know, a good example is Amazon. Generally, Amazon, people that follow that, know that they won because of technology, right? Well, you know, technology alone does not create same-day shipping at global scale. Okay, that comes by optimizing inventory systems, pricing systems, fulfillment systems, customer experience, and yes, technology. But it's the people that can really put all these things together and understand how to re-engineer them for performance. So I submit industrial and systems engineers are typically trained to do exactly this. And so let me get one other thing on the table just from the start, because some people have the perception that industrial and systems engineers just work in industrial settings, like things like manufacturing facilities, foundries, things where hard hats are required, right? Okay, well, our name sometimes unintentionally limits what people perceive that we can do. And so I submit to all of you that industrial and systems engineers, what we do, improving systems, improving customer experience, putting all this together, this is applicable to every industry, and we can make a great impact in nearly every industry across the globe. So that's why IISEs matter. That's why all of you matter. You matter because sometimes, now, really more than ever before, as the world becomes more interconnected, and as we're changing pace even faster and faster, think with the opportunity and the threat of artificial intelligence, it is now more than ever that the world needs IISEs. And so ISEs fundamentally are trained to do reinvention. So reinvention is what we can do to help change the world. 30 years ago, I was an ISE grad at Virginia Tech. Go Hokies, if you didn't notice. I chose this path at the encouragement of my high school physics teacher. And my high school physics teacher gave me great guidance going into college. She says, you don't want to be a physicist. What you want to be is an engineer, because physicists don't make any money. And I will forever be grateful to Miss Jean Martin for the sage advice. She indeed gave me the right track. And I was one of those strange people in college that started right in industrial and systems engineering, and I never changed my major. And I could tell you 30 years later, I'm now more confident than ever that I made the right choice. That's right, you can clap. This can be interactive. It's all good. Yeah, you can clap for your profession. Mm-hmm. So, you know what? I'm very proud also. So I made the right choice, and I'm also proud that my son, Ty, who's with us today, is also an industrial and systems engineer, starting his junior year, also at Virginia Tech. So after graduation, I went into management consulting. And you know why? That's because that's what you do when you don't know what you want to do when you graduate with ISE. It was a wonderful experience. I'd encourage everyone to go into it. But 6 years later, I chose to join Cingular Wireless right when the wireless industry was starting. So it was like a nascent industry at this time. And let's see, AT&T acquired Cingular Wireless in 2007, and I've been with the company ever since. I've been there for 25 years. I've had 14 different jobs, and I think every nook and cranny of the business, from supply chain to network, finance jobs. I led sales organizations. I've done operations, run strategy, marketing even. I've led very large P&Ls and immensely large workforces, serving both consumers and enterprise customers. And telecommunications, it turns out, was an exciting industry. And telecommunications has literally changed the world. It's one of the most interconnected ecosystems that you can think of. It's very complicated. And as you heard in the intro, I've had the opportunity to take part in some of the industry's most significant milestones. That large acquisition of Cingular and AT&T Wireless, it was the largest all-cash transaction in US history at the time, $41 billion in cash in 2004. That is pretty big. I was there for the launch of the first iPhone. It's very hard to believe that it is 20 years almost since the launch of the first iPhone. And this iPhone launched on 2G data. Now we're at 5G now, so this is 2G. Like data wasn't even really a thing. It was kind of a snail's pace. Like text messaging was pretty good, but everything else was terrible. So I've seen the advent, there was not even an app store when it was launched. All of you that were born around this time, there was no app store. That came later. And since that, I've seen the advent of advanced connectivity systems. We launched high-speed broadband, high-speed wireless, saw the entrance of literally life-changing applications, like Google Maps, Uber, Zoom, all of these things we largely take for granted today came about because of the evolution of the telecommunications industry. Today, we have lightning-fast fiber and 5G networks. Like you can download a 4K movie from literally anywhere on the planet. You may have used in-flight Wi-Fi on the way over here, or maybe you took a self-driving car. All of this is made possible because of the improvements in wireless technology and in broadband in total. So it literally has changed the world, and it's been quite a ride to be a part of such an exciting industry. Now, throughout my career, I've been an observational learner. And so what makes some people stand out from the others? And I've learned that ISEs in particular are trained not only to be problem solvers, but to cut through the clutter, to focus on what matters, to connect the dots that other people don't necessarily see. ISEs reinvent systems when the old operating system no longer works, and prepares those who are courageous enough to make a real impact. So today, I'm going to dive into this concept of reinvention. Okay, so reinvention is where our sweet spot is, because whether you're optimizing business models to improve performance or creating entirely new business models, ISEs are uniquely positioned to make an impact. ISEs are trained for this because of all our education. We make the connections. We identify the constraints. We know where the leverage points are. We know how to make trade-offs to optimize performance. And we see this before others do often. And so this is increasingly why ISEs are so relevant now more than ever. The future belongs to those who can reinvent faster than complexity grows and faster than the competition to gain a competitive advantage. And so today, I'm going to start my story with a couple personal examples. And I think you'll see how the impact that ISEs can make through these examples. So I'm going to start with one of the most impactful, most challenging, most rewarding experiences of my career. So I'm going to take you back to 2012. Okay, in 2012, this was like the peak of economic recession. Okay, this was following the housing bust that started in 2007-08 that really pressured the country's economy. I was leading AT&T's wireless strategy function, and in that role, you're supposed to identify, you're supposed to preserve value in the business, of course, but find new ways to grow the business. That is the primary job. And so as I look at the ecosystem at the time, the wireless market was 75% postpaid or premium and 25% prepaid. And that prepaid segment was the fastest growing segment in the entire industry. But AT&T didn't really perform that well in that portion of the market. And so the opportunity came from, okay, how could AT&T enter this market segment and take market share, grow the business without cannibalizing the premium business, because that is a real concern. So when you think about the industry at the time, customers had poor choices. Okay, they could choose to sign up for a postpaid plan, lock into a 2 or 3 year contract, get fantastic phones, get a great network, or if you wanted no contract flexibility, lower prices, you had to suffer through really crummy phones and networks that only worked in metropolitan areas at the time. It was literally geographically constrained to cities. And so this was the opportunity that we saw. How can we take share by reinventing this business model? How can we create wireless without compromise at the right price point and go and grow in this prepaid segment of the market? You guys following? Okay, coffee, yes. All right, so I came up with a business plan to go launch this new business. I pitched it to the chairman and our CEO, and they said, that's a great idea. Go do that. I was like, gulp, me. I'm going to go start up a business. Wow. And they said, yes, go do that. So, all right, so in May of 2012, we decided to go launch a fighter brand. If you ever went on to get your MBA, you probably studied this strategy. There is probably not a strategy for business that exists that is as tempting or as potentially completely ruinous as this strategy. And more companies have failed than succeeded when deploying this. So this is not for the light of heart. I'll give you a good example. Good example, in 1955, Budweiser, when facing threats from local regional beer manufacturers, they were taking their share, they launched a fighter brand called Busch Beer. Okay? And Busch Beer was a wild success. They did not cannibalize the main business. They took off. I know when I was in college, this was the #1 beer on campus. It probably still is. You guys ever hear of Busch? Who are my students out there? You might not admit it because it's actually not very good. We called it Beast. But it probably still is very popular at the time. But this was a great success story that still is thriving today. Okay, but more often, these companies do little damage to the target they're trying to impact, and they end up suffering massive collateral damages. Okay, so knowing that this was risky, we took our time and we studied what does it take to be successful in a fighter brand strategy. And as luck would have it, in 2009, Harvard Business Review put out a case study entitled, "Should You Launch a Fighter Brand?" And in that, they studied these 4 principles of what must exist to be successful in this strategy. Okay, so the first, you've got to be able to differentiate versus your premium business. Okay, this sounds obvious, but you've got to have a difference in the actual product and the business so that you don't cannibalize the main business. If you're going to have a fighter brand with lower revenue, you can't just shuffle pockets. And that's exactly what happened to Kodak when they tried this strategy. So Kodak was under threat from Fujifilm, a Japanese manufacturer that came in and entered the market. They had much lower prices, really great quality. So Kodak launched FunTime. And FunTime was fantastic. It was a great product. The only problem is, this is back in the day when people printed pictures, so bear with me. When you actually printed your photos, customers could not tell the difference between the Kodak and the FunTime photo. And so what happened? Oh, they cannibalized their entire premium business. By 2012, Fuji was worth almost $13 billion, and Kodak filed for bankruptcy. Okay, next most important thing. You've got to be competitive to the market leaders where you're trying to compete. You've got to solve an unmet need in the industry. So our unmet need is all these choice points that customers have to make. But if you go all in and you're aiming to take share, you have to be competitive in that group. And this is where a lot of big companies fail because they don't have the courage to go really hard and compete because they're afraid of, number one, cannibalizing their premium business. The airline industry is a great example of this. Let's see, probably the early 2000s, United and Delta as well were under pressure from these new regional providers. So think Frontier, Southwest, JetBlue, these low-cost providers, and they were losing share. So what did they do? They decided to launch a fighter brand and go after this market segment. Problem? They actually never competed with those actual competitors. They were always 20% plus more expensive than the customers, than these companies they were trying to compete against. So they weren't meeting an unmet need. They weren't even price competitive. 5 years after launching TED, which is United's fighter brand, sometimes today they call it the end of United. 5 years later, it was shut down. All the planes rolled back into the mothership. Okay, third one. And this one's really hard. You have to be maniacal about your cost structure. If you're gonna have less revenue, you have to have less costs in order to make money. Okay, this sounds really obvious, but if you take a bunch of stuff from the mothership, it's probably very expensive also. So you really have to think different here. So good example here is in the car industry. In the early 80s, I'd say, GM was under pressure from like Honda and the Japanese car companies coming into the market. And they had much lower pricing and they were taking all sorts of market share. So GM came up with this brilliant fighter brand called Saturn. Anyone remember Saturn? I had a Saturn for 12 years. It was awesome. If you don't know about Saturn, like all the students in here would love it because if you took a baseball bat and you like whacked the side of this thing, it would just pop right back out like a minute later. It's awesome. So when you hit something, it just, you don't have to tell your parents about it. It's pretty sweet. It was a great car. It was very popular. Problem is, every car that GM sold, they lost $3,000. Okay, so by 2009, GM had lost $15 billion on this venture, and then they decided to pull the plug. Okay, fourth, you have to have autonomy from the large organization. This is important as well, because you have to have your main team focused on winning in the primary business and your other team focused on winning in this new market segment, so you don't get management distraction. You don't fight for priorities across the business. They have to be run independently. And Delta made this error as well as the pricing problem, because when they launched Song, their fighter brand that went against these regional players, they operated with the same pilots, with the same labor unions, the same management structure, and that it was just distracting the company all around, and so they folded that back in just a few years later. Every company I just mentioned filed for bankruptcy after this venture. Every single one of them. Okay, so That was not an option for us. We're not going to take down AT&T because of this new sub-brand. And so we were maniacal about sticking to these principles and making sure that we were set up for success. So we got to business. Told you I was charged with setting up this business, so I hired my leadership team. It was a great team. There's like 10 of us now, and this is in May of 2012. And the most instrumental days of this entire venture were the first 2 days. And I'm going to give you a little look behind the scenes of the first 2 days that laid the foundation for the whole rest of what came afterwards, because it was amazing. We aligned on what's our vision, what's our purpose, how are we going to work together, like what's it going to feel like working here. That established our culture. We defined up front how we're going to differentiate in the market so that we could have focus and know where we're going to win and spend money and know where we're not. And we built a strong foundation for everything else to follow. So where do we start? We started with our vision. Okay, and so every word in this was carefully picked because we're going to be fearless. That is our posture of entering this market. We're going to be fearless in this. And we're going to provide every customer, not just those that pass credit checks, every customer, a simple, smarter choice, not a dumbed-down version of the other thing, but a curated, awesome, smart choice. And the purpose, what is our purpose? Well, it's to enrich people's lives, to give people options for connectivity that they would never have had otherwise. We then talked about what is it going to be like working here, and we aligned on these 13 guiding principles. And I'm not going to go through all of these, but I'll highlight a few that were more impactful. And since I took a bunch of people from the AT&T mothership and a couple externals, 13 was really important. Draw on your experiences, but don't be limited by them. It's a really important one. This is applicable in pretty much every example I can think of in my career. Number 2, challenge the status quo. Think different. Really important when starting a new venture. 3, don't let perfection get in the way of timeliness. Perfection is not required. What's most important is getting going. We can finesse how we get there along the way, but get started. Number 5 was be focused and make smart trade-offs. Really important if you're trying to have a really tight cost structure. And finally, my favorite one on here, maybe less relevant for some of you, number 12. Operate in small, responsive teams, not intergalactic steering committees. Okay, so small teams are going to make the difference here. We then moved on. Day 2 was all around how are we going to win in the market? Where is the competitive set, and where are we going to differentiate? And you can see where we felt the competition was and where we were going to invest to be different. And it was around devices. We created a terminology called premium economy. People want name brand devices, they just don't want to pay a lot for them, so we stripped out all the bells and whistles that were not relevant and got the price down, but maintained that premium name brand and prestige. We're going to differentiate through network coverage, network reliability. We're actually going to use AT&T's network. We're going to brand it something else, but now it's going to be a nationwide network, not stuck in geographies. It'll be nationwide, so this is a radical improvement in the ecosystem. And we're going to differentiate through customer experience. Customers in this ecosystem at the time were kind of treated like second-class citizens. So we were creating first-class treatment for all customers, where they can have a kind of premium experience in enjoying the brand and the business. So this foundational mapping of where we're going to differentiate helped make trade-offs, keep costs low, kept everyone focused so we can actually deliver this thing. And the last thing we agreed on was our timing. Yep, we're going to launch the entire business in 12 months. That's kind of crazy, right? Like, what business is launched from, like, I have an idea to commercial launch in 12 months? But that's what we committed to. It made everyone extraordinarily uncomfortable, but it made us step way outside our comfort zones. There's no time for analysis paralysis here. You just got to get going. And so that's what we did. We probably made thousands of decisions with limited information because we didn't have a lot of time. So you just have to kind of choose and go. Perfection is not required. The only error here is when you make the wrong choice and you fail to recognize it and make another choice. That was the only time that we talked about failing. Okay? We pivoted when things didn't work out. That's the word we used, which was just pivot to something else. We were super disciplined around managing our scope. We had a filter that said if it didn't make money, save money, or create a great experience, like, why are we talking about it? Like, take it off the table. We're not going to do that. We were maniacal about the cost structure, because this is where, like, a lot of the reimagination, a lot of the reinvention was around the cost structure itself. We committed to launching vanilla software packages. We actually bid everything with AT&T and third parties, and we didn't pick AT&T for any of these things because the cost structure was too high. We committed to vanilla implementations because you don't have time to customize this stuff in a 12-month window. So we changed our business before we changed the software. Really important mindset. Only if it was critically important, like I had to approve software customizations, which was a good sign it's not going to happen. So it was helpful. Think in our stores. We designed a modular floor plan. So think reusable parts. We learn about this in our coursework. We're going to have stores of all different shapes and sizes, but we came up with the same kind of kit of parts that can be used in a large store, a small store, whatever format it is. If it's a bowling alley or it's wide, these parts can be configured in any way to fit the space, and that kept the cost structure very, very low. We came up with simple business processes. We defined everything such that we can hire a new person in a store and train them for 4 hours, and by the afternoon, they can be accretive to the business. That was the filter. That was the goal that we were going for. And finally, we designed the entire business itself to be simple. We had all-in pricing, taxes and fees included. We didn't have any prorations in the business, and those couple decisions alone dramatically reduced the cost of customer service. You're not going to call and ask about your bill if you totally understand your bill. And so these were foundational choice points. And so with trust, determination, passion for our purpose, and commitment to each other, the impossible happened. On May 9th, 2013, we launched Aio Wireless into the market. This was like our blood, sweat, and tears for the whole year. It was an amazing high. So Aio Wireless is the brand that we developed. We created that value prop that you saw, and we were so excited. I actually brought our Anthem TV spot. This is the TV spot that we ran in select markets. We launched in 3 markets, Houston, Atlanta, and Tampa. And if you were in those markets at the time, you may have seen this. You can see our value prop. Oops, we don't have volume. You guys want to try it again, or should I keep rolling? It's only 30 seconds, so. All right, we'll give it like another couple seconds, then we'll just get going. We can play Enter Sandman once more, if you all would like. Okay, should we keep going? Okay, let's go back one, please. Okay, all right, that was an amazing ad, don't you think? It literally voices over the value prop, so you could probably see even in the visuals taxes and fees included, no contract, big network. We're creating wireless without compromise, which was the value prop that we set out right from the very beginning. So it's kind of cool how you can see it come together after going through all the development of the business model. So this was an amazing high for this team. Like, we actually friggin' did it. Like, no one thought we could do this thing in 12 months, but damn it, we did it, and it was awesome. But as we launched that first day, we realized that, oh, we did all that work to get to the starting line, because now we actually have to run a business and scale it and all of that. And so we had to reinvent once again so that we could drive the scale that we need. Our initial care strategy needed to be tweaked. We only had one call center, and we needed some geo redundancy. We had a fairly significant network outage, so we had to rethink all of our network and IT infrastructure and fortify the foundation that we built. We had to add customer lifecycle management. You don't think about customer churn when you don't have any customers, but now we're going to have customers, so we have to build that. And our distribution strategy struggled to scale at the pace that we needed, so that we had to continue to shrink cost out of new store builds so that we can scale at the pace we needed. Okay, this business took off. Like, this was on fire. Within 12 months, we scaled to 25 markets. We opened 600 stores. That's like 2 per day, every day for a whole year. We grew to 250,000 customers in that first year. We carefully measured for cannibalization, and we measured how much we might be taking from AT&T, and we were well below all the thresholds that we set for ourselves, so check there. And our cost structure was right on point, and so we were checking off all of those imperatives that we set out to make sure that we delivered on. So we got confidence that we could scale nationwide, and in a high capital-intensive environment, scaling is the most important path to product profitability. Okay, so we had to scale really fast. So a few months in, we realized, hey, this is working. We're not going to kill the AT&T business through this fighter brand strategy. Like, we can do this. And so we decided to scale even faster. And that is with an acquisition. So Cricket Wireless, this is the legacy Cricket Wireless branding you see here. They were a weaker competitor in our prepaid market. They had lost 30% of their base, or 2 million customers, in the 2 years prior to our acquisition. They were losing money. They had no path for their network transformation. They were running into a wall in terms of network technology, and were never going to be able to return to profit. And for us, luckily, they had amazing spectrum assets, and so this is a brilliant matchup to acquire Cricket Wireless. As soon as we decided we would acquire, we pivoted our Aio deployment strategy to roll out in other markets. And so when we combined this entity a year later, we had, I think, 84 markets, 3,300 stores. Like, we were suddenly a nationwide thing. Now, to get this deal through, the FCC required that we keep the Cricket name. Okay, so that's one challenge, because it wasn't necessarily a top-performing brand at the time. We also committed to launching the new business in 60 days, because the market segment was moving fast. Remember, we're coming out of this recession. It's only a short window for us to go and grab market share while this is still the hot thing, so we had to move quickly. And we had to return the company in total to growth as fast as possible. So, all right, let's figure it out. Let's reinvent this business yet again. Right, so think about it. Now we've got to launch another whole new company. We need to have a new brand. We need to have a new website. All our devices need changed out. We got to change out all of the stores. And in May of 2014, 60 days post the close of this deal, and almost 1 year to the day after we first launched Aio Wireless, we launched the new Cricket. We came up with this cool new brand, and look, we put all the value attributes and market positioning from Aio and renamed this whole thing Cricket. The network technologies were not compatible, so we actually took the whole foundation we stood up for the startup business and just scaled the crap out of that. Like, all the systems and network now had to have millions of customers, not 250,000 in very short order. And we moved customers from the legacy Cricket to the new Cricket, changing out phones, so that we could unplug all the old infrastructure. And so timing was really important. So this is the cool new look for the business. We were super meticulous about cost, again. So I think reinventing the cost structure is one of the most critical things to make sure that you have a thriving business. We did little things, like things that sound silly, but this green is a little different than the green you saw on the previous page, because this is standard green. Okay, and why is standard green important versus a custom green? Well, everything you buy in this color is 30% cheaper when you buy standard green. And you can maintain color consistency all over the place because this is a standard color. Right? No one knows the difference, but now my cost is 30% less. It's excellent. We migrated customers to that new network as fast as we could. We said we're going to finish it. From 18 months from the acquisition, every customer will be off of the old platform and onto the new one so that we can unplug all the old network and IT infrastructure and reduce our cost structure. We even developed advertising using animation because now we don't have to pay expensive actors and actresses. The animation reduces production times. You can do this in an office building. You don't need a production studio. And so we came up with these characters. You guys have probably seen these characters on TV. They're still used by the Cricket brand today. Fun fact, they each have cute names and personalities and all of that. The center guy holding the phone, that's Dante. But this strategy totally played out. So launching the new Cricket, repositioning the value prop of the business, and relaunching worked. Like, it worked amazingly. I'll show you what it looked like. So we turned around that Cricket business. We said we need to do it as fast as we can. We did it in 5 months. You could see the net customer additions in that chart on the left. Red is bad, green is good. We turned green 5 months in from launching the new Cricket. In the first half of the following year, in 2015, we led the industry in net customer additions. And that was just the first of many. We led in net customer additions for most of the next decade. Like, this was a thriving business. Our net promoter score went from dead last to number 2 within the first 6 months of the next year. Like, it was amazing. It went on to number 1 following this time period. Today, Cricket is a thriving business. It's more than $6 billion. About 13 million customers are served with this brand. And that we continue to maintain all of those 4 imperatives we talked about for fighter brand success. And so really proud that this business is still out there. Now, none of this happened in isolation. It didn't happen because of the network alone, or because of handsets alone, or because of pricing. This happened because we took an IISE approach to reinvent the business model, to find the white space in the industry, and to piece together a business that could go make an impact and thrive for years to come. So by redesigning these pieces, we took share, we lowered cost, we improved the customer experience, and we built this thriving business. Okay, so that's systems thinking, and that is why IISE matters. So that's for like a whole new business. So I often get this question. Okay, that works for something new, but what if you don't work for a startup business? What if you're in a large enterprise? What if you're in a mature business with legacy systems and maybe a bunch of siloed teams? And what if you got millions of customers? You can't really take big risks and start from scratch. Like, does reinvention still apply in this environment? And I submit the answer is a resounding yes. Like, it is absolutely essential. And this is a different problem set, but the same IISE skill set can be used to make a significant impact even in these environments. And so I'm going to share with you a second example because it's what I'm doing now. Today I lead business operations at AT&T. And this is part of our business serving enterprise customers, small, medium, and large. And after customers buy something from us, then my team picks up through contracting, getting the service installed, supporting it after it's launched if something goes wrong, customer care, billing, like all the super sexy things. That's what I do. Yes, so I've got business operations. And when customers talk about what doesn't work well in this ecosystem, they talk about things like, hey, we got some confusing contracts, or my circuit wasn't installed on time, or I didn't really know where the tech was. They talk about bills that they don't trust. They talk about outages that may last longer than they care for. And each of these things are problems, but I submit these aren't independent problems. This is a system problem. And I'll give you context, because AT&T is a 150-year-old company this year. 150 years. There's not a lot of companies that can say they've been around for 150 years. But what happens over years is large organizations accumulate layers. They add complexity on complexity to solve for one-offs and add control points. And before you know it, like, complexity happens over time with little effort. Simplicity is very, very hard, and you have to be focused and disciplined. But these are complex businesses that have accumulated stuff over time. And this adds cost, it adds time, it adds poor customer experience, and it really limits what you can do. So without getting too technical, you'd probably find that this simple process mostly resembles what you'd find in some of these large enterprises. You guys are all IISEs, and so you're probably familiar with Rube Goldberg, right? Anyone familiar with Rube Goldberg? Okay, this was a cartoonist. This is one of his. Rube Goldberg was a cartoonist in the early 1900s, and he was known for publishing like cartoons of processes that were like way overly complex. This is simple paper stapling, if you can find the paper stapling portion in this picture. His drawings were like absurd on purpose. But it's sad to say that many of the processes that happen in some of our large, older businesses today kind of look like this. I heard some of that in just the awards session that we were recognizing some of the amazing award winners for sorting out this complexity. So many enterprise workflows became these Rube Goldberg processes over time. And it creates excess time, excess cost. And at AT&T, over the years, we've added layers of shellacking and different systems that we've tried but not fully deployed, and now we got everything. And this happens in large companies. Kind of like if you've been in a house for a really long time, you end up with just like stuff. Like that's like large enterprises have just stuff. In the past, enterprises had to rely on these large technology transformation programs. Like they would spend millions, billions on these multi-year transformation programs. And more often than not, these multi-year transformation programs ran way longer than expected and cost way more than expected. Very few actually generated the return that was originally anticipated. Enter 2026. Okay, now we have IISEs that are skilled at reinvention, and now we have AI, specifically agentic AI, to reinvent workflows without all of the traditional steps of replatforming everything. Lord knows we don't have time, money, or patience in most big companies to make it through the multi-billion-dollar, multi-year transformation project, and that's not needed anymore. So let me give you a real example of how we are reinventing some of these legacy workflows at AT&T. Okay, I'll start with framing the situation and what we're trying to accomplish. And then I'll give you a specific example from within my business. Okay, this is a true reinvention. So throw away everything you know about how the thing has worked for however many years and rethink it. The biggest change is fundamentally a culture shift. So going from reactive to proactive. How do you fundamentally restructure the work, the people, the systems, everything to reframe how we do things? We're moving from a scenario where we're dealing with complex manual systems, legacy technology that creates lengthy cycle times. Things happen in serial and mainframes. It takes a really long time. And we're reframing that to think, okay, how do we create an operating model using agentic AI where we can operate faster, simpler, more symbiotic, things running in parallel. How do we automate processes to dramatically shrink cycle times, improve the customer experience as we go? And in our transformation, improving the customer experience is the North Star. That is the number one thing that all of our reinvention efforts are aimed to. And so when you do that, you also improve the employee experience. And good news is that great, simple customer experience actually costs less to support. And so that's what helps reshape your cost curves. Okay, so let me bring this to life with a specific example from service assurance. Now, service assurance is the part of my business that operates to serve our customers and support all of their connections that are in service. And if there's something goes bump in the night, they are responsible for recovering from any incidents that occur. Okay, so think you have a fiber connection, it goes out, that's this team that's going to solve this thing. Okay, okay, so in telecom forever, all the telecom companies have used the same general process. Reliability matters. That's the most important thing in this ecosystem. And so here's the normal process for what's been happening for years as if an outage happens. So you can see the picture, some issue occurs, customers send in a ticket, it routes to a bunch of humans that troubleshoot and figure out what's going on. It sits in queues and ticket queues waiting for someone to pick it up for a long time. Then it routes to people that are going to solve the problem, and that sits in ticket queues for a while, so someone picks up the thing, goes and solves it, and then finally we solve the problem and we tell the customer. And that, let's just call that 8 hours for this example, okay? And so this is a lengthy manual process with lots of people involved, waiting in queues for someone to do something, and this is typically how it's done. And so that's backwards. Like from a systems engineering perspective, that's the wrong way to think about this. Right? Why would you wait until after the customer tells you have a problem to start taking action? That seems crazy. What customers really want, they want it not to go down, period, and then if it does, they want it to come back up ASAP. Like it's rather simple. But the structure, we weren't organized to deliver on that expectation. So we asked a different question. Okay, we said, okay, what if great service was not about responding faster when something happens, not just wait for a problem and then jump into action, like we can all be heroes and do that, but what if we reframed it and said, what if the whole purpose of this was to prevent the issue from happening to begin with? So reframing how we even think about how we do this was fundamental. So instead of responsive, reactive, to proactive and predictive. So here's an example of what the predictive workflow looks like. Okay, so now, AI, we've connected all of our data, our network data, our telemetry from customer endpoints. We have historicals on what data looks like before things go wrong. And now the AI is running predictive models to detect when an issue will occur in the future. Like this thing looks and smells like the thing that always goes out about 30 hours from now. And so now we can use AI, identifies the issue, it's troubleshooted already, and they send it to the exact right team to go and resolve the thing before the issue occurs. Now they go switch out the card in the central office or whatever the remediation is that they need to do, and the customer is none the wiser. Okay, so this is exactly what customers want. They just don't want a problem at all. So now we're using AI to get predictive and proactive and eliminating problems altogether because now we're solving them before customers feel them at all. This is what's exactly what customers want. Okay, but we can't predict every outage. Think we also have things like fiber cuts. You guys hear of copper theft? It's a real thing. And the bad guys don't actually know what's copper and what's fiber. It's in this like black sheathing. It looks kind of the same. So they cut our fiber all the time. And then we got to go repair it. Now, we can't predict when the thieves are going to cut the fiber, but they do it. And then that is a reactive scenario. And so in that scenario, we're also using AI to speed this process up. So now, we use the network data to know when we have signal loss. So now we know that we have an issue. The customer no longer sends in a ticket. We tell the customer we see it and we're on it. The AI troubleshoots what's going on. The AI dispatches the right team the first time to go resolve the problem, and we fix the problem much, much faster than we were before. Let's say, oops, I didn't switch. Let's say in 4 hours now instead of 8 hours. Someone still generally has to drive across town and splice fiber, so there's physical labor involved. But all of the other manual steps that involve troubleshooting, that we're digging into mainframe systems, that is all now being done with artificial intelligence. And the cool thing about AI, when you're talking about serving customers, is especially agentic AI, it now has memory and it has judgment. So it knows the history of the customer and how we should respond. It knows the history, so it knows how we should prioritize this problem versus that problem. It comes with a lot of features added that the manual system simply could not account for. Okay, so everything I've shared today, from launching Aio Wireless, to reinventing the business and launching Cingular Wireless, to reinventing old legacy workflows with agentic AI. All of these things have one thing in common. All of these things happen because the outcomes are determined by how well this interconnected system is designed. And the future will not reward like patchwork fixes. The future's not going to reward whoever can tolerate complexity or deal with complexity better. The future will reward reinvention. And it'll reward leaders, systems thinkers, all of you in this room that see the whole system, not just one part, that can redesign for outcomes, not just accomplish tasks faster. It'll reward leaders that can balance people, process, technology to create better outcomes. And it'll reward leaders that have the courage to dream big enough and change what no longer works. People that can challenge the status quo and reinvent what right looks like. And that's what industrial and systems engineers do. That is why I'm more convinced now than ever that I picked the right major, and this is the most exciting field that we have out there. This IISEs can reinvent businesses and solve some of the world's greatest problems. And so in a world being reshaped by AI, by complexity, by technology, by new entrants all over the place, there's never been a greater need for leaders, systems thinkers, ISEs, who can step up and lead. The time is now, and the future belongs to systems thinkers and leaders who dream big. The future is yours. Go shape it. Thank you all.